Okay, so you want to buy an airline, buy some planes, hire some pilots, sell tickets, watch the passengers roll in. Simple enough. But here's the strange part. The airline industry carried 4.6 billion passengers in 2024. It generated nearly $1 trillion in total revenue. It is one of the most essential infrastructures in the global economy. And yet, in 2024, the average airline made just $7.90 in net profit per passenger. $7.90. For flying a human being across the sky in a metal tube at 600 miles an hour. That is less than the cost of a large coffee at Heathrow Airport. And somehow, that's considered a record high. Airlines are one of the most structurally necessary businesses ever created. Governments bail them out during crises, because letting them fail is unthinkable. Entire economies, tourism, trade, global supply chains depend on airlines staying airborne. And yet airlines go bankrupt more reliably, more repeatedly, and more spectacularly than almost any other business in history. Over 200 airlines have failed in the last 30 years. More than half of all airlines operating today will not exist in their current form within the next decade. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly why that's possible, how airlines actually make money, why the actual flying is increasingly the least profitable part of the business, what 2 catastrophic mistakes destroy airlines over and over again, and what the numbers look like if you somehow get it right. Airlines come in 3 sizes, and like almost every industry we've covered, they are 3 completely different businesses. The smallest entry point is a regional carrier. These are airlines that fly short domestic routes, connecting smaller cities to major hubs. Launching a regional airline with 3 to 5 aircraft costs between $10 million and $50 million. Most of the aircraft are leased rather than purchased. A standard lease on a regional aircraft can cost anywhere from $50,000 to $150,000 per month. You get thin routes, thin margins, and passengers who mostly fly because they have no alternative. Then there's the middle tier, the low-cost carrier, Ryanair, EasyJet, Indigo. Launching a serious low-cost airline with 10 to 30 aircraft requires somewhere between $100 million and $500 million. This is where the biggest innovation in aviation happened over the last 30 years. The low-cost model stripped everything out. Meals, seat assignments, flexible tickets, and then sold them all back to you separately. And finally, there's the full-service legacy carrier. The international airlines with wide-body aircraft, business-class cabins, airport lounges, and long-haul routes. These cost billions to build. Emirates launched in 1985 with 2 leased aircraft and support from the Dubai government. Today, it operates hundreds of aircraft and generates over $30 billion in annual revenue. That transformation took 40 years and the backing of an entire state. Starting a global airline from scratch today without government support is almost impossible. But whichever level you enter, there are 2 costs nobody warns you about up front. The first is airport slots. At airports like Heathrow, JFK, and Tokyo Haneda, there are only a limited number of takeoff and landing slots available every hour. Those slots are incredibly valuable because the infrastructure is capped. A single pair of Heathrow slots sold for around $75 million in 2016. Peak hour slots today are worth even more. You haven't bought a plane yet. You've spent almost $100 million just for the right to use a runway twice a day. The second cost is fuel. Jet fuel is the single largest operating expense for most airlines on Earth. And unlike many other costs, it is completely outside your control. When oil prices surged after the Russia-Ukraine war, airline fuel costs exploded. Some airlines survived because they had hedged fuel prices in advance. Others collapsed under the pressure. Southwest Airlines famously saved billions through aggressive fuel hedging, while competitors struggled badly. Now we get to the question that actually matters. Where does the money come from? Because here's the secret most passengers still don't fully understand. The money does not really come from flying people. In 2024, major US airlines generated tens of billions of dollars from loyalty programs alone, not from tickets, from frequent flyer miles. Airlines sell these miles to banks. Banks give them to credit card customers, and customers keep spending because they want rewards. United Airlines Mileage Plus program generated billions in revenue. In some cases, the loyalty program became more valuable than the airline itself. Then there's ancillary revenue, everything that isn't the ticket, baggage fees, Seat selection, priority boarding, Wi-Fi. Food. Ryanair generates a huge portion of its income from these extras. Some low-cost airlines make more than half their revenue from optional charges alone. Then there's commission-based revenue, hotels, car rentals, travel insurance. You're not just buying a flight anymore. You're using a travel retail platform that also happens to own planes. And here's the most surprising fact in this entire industry. When you strip out loyalty revenue, many major airlines barely make money from actual flying. The flying is what brings customers into the ecosystem. The loyalty program is the real business. Now let's talk about how airlines control costs. You've probably noticed flight prices changing constantly. A ticket might cost £180 on Monday, £240 on Wednesday, then drop again on Thursday. That's not random. It's called yield management, one of the most sophisticated pricing systems ever created. Airlines constantly adjust prices in real time based on how full the plane is, how far away departure is, competitor pricing, season, day of week, and dozens of other variables. The same seat can sell for wildly different prices depending on timing. The industry has another important term, load factor. This is the percentage of seats actually filled on a flight. Below around 75 to 80%, most flights lose money. Above that point, profitability improves dramatically because the major costs are already paid. This is why airlines overbook flights. They know statistically that some passengers will not show up. Selling extra tickets is usually more profitable than flying empty seats, even if compensation occasionally has to be paid. Then there's maintenance, the cost that never stops. Every commercial aircraft undergoes deep inspections regularly. A major maintenance check on a Boeing 737 can cost millions of dollars. Large airlines constantly spend enormous amounts just keeping planes legally airworthy before a single passenger boards. Everything about modern aviation, yield management, overbooking, loyalty programs, ancillary fees, exists to solve one massive problem. The fixed costs are enormous and unavoidable. The planes must fly, the crew must be paid, the airport fees must be paid, the maintenance must happen. Whether the seats are full or empty, airlines fail for many reasons. But two mistakes here over and over again. The first, debt and bad timing. Pan Am was once the most famous airline in the world. It pioneered international aviation. It became synonymous with luxury air travel. Then came the oil crisis. Fuel prices surged. Its giant fuel-hungry aircraft became liabilities overnight. Then deregulation introduced cheaper competitors. Pan Am started selling assets just to survive. And after the Lockerbie bombing in 1988, the company faced catastrophic reputational and financial damage. In 1991, Pan Am collapsed completely. The lesson is simple. Debt removes your ability to survive shocks, and aviation experiences shocks constantly. The second mistake, misreading the market. Thomas Cook, one of the oldest travel companies in history, collapsed in 2019 with enormous debt. The company combined a travel agency business with an airline. That combination became a trap. Online booking platforms destroyed traditional holiday packages. Low-cost airlines made independent travel cheaper. Instead of adapting quickly, Thomas Cook kept borrowing money. Eventually, the debt became impossible to manage. Within days, the company collapsed. Hundreds of thousands of travelers were stranded abroad. 178 years of history disappeared almost overnight. The lesson: you must understand what business you are actually in. Thomas Cook thought it was selling holidays. The market had already changed around them. Here's the entire airline business in one sentence. An airline is a fixed cost machine that must remain almost completely full every single day, while extracting as much extra revenue as possible from every passenger, every fee, every loyalty point, every overbooked seat. Every algorithm exists to keep the company slightly above zero. So what happens if you actually get it right? Scenario 1. A regional airline worth $30 million. 3 aircraft. Short-haul domestic routes annual revenue, $15 to $25 million. Fuel, leases, crew, and airport fees consume almost everything. Profit in a good year? Maybe $1 to $3 million. And that assumes no fuel crisis, no pandemic, no larger competitor entering your route. Regional airlines survive in the gaps of the market. The moment those gaps become attractive, larger airlines move in. Now scenario 2, a mid-sized low-cost carrier worth $500 million, 20 aircraft, regional and continental routes. Annual revenue, $800 million to over $1 billion. This is where the low-cost model becomes powerful. Ryanair became Europe's most profitable airline by simplifying everything. One aircraft type, lower airport fees, fast turnarounds, and massive ancillary revenue. Every bag, every seat, every sandwich, sold separately. Michael O'Leary transformed Ryanair into a machine built entirely around efficiency. He became a billionaire not by making flying luxurious, but by making it cheap enough that almost everyone could afford it. So if you decide to buy an airline, remember the most important rule of this industry. Airlines moved billions of people and trillions of dollars in cargo in 2024. They support huge portions of the global economy. And yet, throughout the history of aviation, the industry has destroyed more capital than it created. Warren Buffett once joked that if someone had stopped the Wright brothers in 1903, investors everywhere would have benefited. Even Buffett himself struggled to make money from airline investments. That is not an accident. It is the nature of the industry. You are not really in the business of flying people. You are in the business of selling everything around the flying. The airlines that understood, that became giants. The ones that didn't are mostly gone. Just make sure you know which one you want to become before you buy the first plane.